Y'all City Hall. And we have our mayor, there, waiting on his time to come up. However, we have, a lot to get out this morning, and I just want to thank USDA for coming. I called, they were eager to come. So we're gonna have our opening this morning with Lara Lofton, Ag Farm Division Director.
Morning.
Morning.
And to those of you online or Zoom, good morning as well. And I would like to thank everyone for attending today. And this session, the purpose of this meeting today is to present to you services and programs that are offered by the United States Department of Agriculture, the Farm Service Agency, as well as the, I believe, Rural Development is here.
No.
Rural Development, okay, but from Natural Resources Conservation Service. So we just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to be aware of the programs and services that are available, particularly the practices that are controlled and managed by NRCS. And we meet at these town hall type settings so that we can bring this information to the people who are in need of it. And that includes our farmers, our vegetable growers, our row crop farmers, as well as livestock producers. And this includes women and veterans. And we also would like to, well, with rural development not being here, but we do have our own Dr. Calvin King, who is very, very familiar with the programs that are offered through rural development. So those programs are available to the residents and to the municipalities, the communities, because rural development in conjunction with the United States Department of Agriculture, other programs, spend a tremendous amount of money in the state of Mississippi, as well as Arkansas and Tennessee, but especially in Arkansas and Mississippi. So on behalf of our president and CEO, Dr. Calvin King, our chairman of our board, Dr. Cornelius, our board members and our staff, we would like to welcome you all to this education and information meeting. Thank you.
Next we're gonna have, welcome the mayor. Stanton, Mayor Stanton. Let's get him in.
Thank you and good morning, all. On behalf of the mayor and the board of aldermen for this fair city, you guys excuse me if this is new to me now. I was diagnosed last week on this, so I'm getting accustomed to O2, okay? I'd like to welcome you to our fair city. I've done a lot of work with USDA, rural development. You guys have been fantastic as far as helping or assisting the city of Shaw in certain areas, okay? But I'd like to thank you and I'd like to welcome you as the Arkansas Land and Community Development Corporation. Welcome to Shaw, and I'm hoping that we get other farmers, be they cotton, soybeans, gardening, or whatever market they're in. I realized years ago, and I've never seen it happen here in the Mississippi Delta, where farmers have access to a lot of resources. Nobody, I don't think anybody has given or put forth an effort to make sure rural areas get the services and resources they need to be productive. I've always considered farming, be it whatever, the backbone of the country. And I'm glad you all showed up this morning. You asked if you could come to the show. And I'm hoping and praying that we have some of our farmers, be they vegetable gardeners or whatever. I'm hoping they show up. I really do. We got the word out where they are aware that this is going on this morning. So you guys are welcome and enjoy your stay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Stanton. And I got a chance to, share information. He shared information with me and he welcomed us with everything, you know. So I appreciate it. We appreciate Arkansas Land and Community Development, Corporation. Appreciate you. Next, we're gonna have our own, president, CEO, Dr. Calvin King, to speak on, One USA Urban and Rural.
Let me express my appreciation, first of all, to the mayor, one, for hosting this meeting. And as he said, you know, USDA, and we say one USDA, because USDA is a major resource for rural communities and now rural and urban areas. Resources they have to offer, both in the way of production agriculture, community economic development, housing, business enterprise development itself, as well as community facilities. And we're going to go into depth, you know, about that with the agencies who are part of this, both Natural Resource Conservation Services, along with Farm Service Agency. I do want to say, before we get into all of the agenda, you know, this particular meeting is being recorded. So those who are online, I want you to be aware of that for two reasons. One, anyone that you know that may not be participating today, then we're going to post the meeting online. And we do that for the purpose of, as I say, community engagement. So if individuals hear about the meeting after the fact by you or others and say, I wish I would have been there, then let them know that they will still have the opportunity to go to our website when we put the meeting up and still receive the information that's being provided from all the agencies. And that could be those in Shaw, Mississippi, or anywhere else in Mississippi, or even if they're in other parts of the country and you know them, then you can just let them know. You be a resource yourself. Go online and get the information that was provided to us today in Shaw, Mississippi, hosting the meeting, and they'll be able to benefit from everything that is being said and done here today. Our website is www.alcdc.org. That's www.alcdc.org. And we do this for a number of reasons. One, we want communities as a whole to know what USDA is doing and the type of resources that's available to them and USDA's efforts to get those resources out. So, and that's why we not just do the meeting in person, we allow individuals to participate online, virtually, while the event is taking place live. And then we continue with that information being provided to the public from our website. And even USDA themselves can refer individuals back to the website and say, well, we talked about this, or FSA talked about their program areas, what program areas that's up now, the areas they're working in, and along with, you know, how you can contact them. So that's the reason we try to do a pretty broad perspective to deal with community engagement. So I just want to sort of say that on the front end, as I get started to talk about what all is going to be taking place here today. One, Natural Resource Conservation Services. You know, at one time, as the mayor gave reference to rural areas and rural communities and what all USDA has done for Shaw, Mississippi, and many other areas of Mississippi, but USDA now in the 2018 Farm Bill, USDA is engaged both in urban and rural communities. So they don't have the population limitations as they have had in the past. Now that means also that they are delivering resources in a much broader fashion when you start to talk about farming, particularly now as it is so defined as micro-urban farming. So you can be in Jackson, Mississippi, and receive the benefit of NRCS and Farm Service Agencies resources. But they'll talk more specifically about their program areas, Natural Resource Conservation Services, They will talk about what they're doing to engage with the community to deliver resources as it has to do with the micro-urban farm in the urban area, as well as in rural communities. Because now, I heard the mayor gave very specifically, he gave reference to his gardeners in the area. Well, gardeners can now be farmers and receive the benefit of the resources just like any other farm. If you're 1,000 acres, 10,000 acres, whichever. So they can receive the benefit of natural resource conservation services resources to produce their gardens or their small, they may only be an acre, 2 acres of whichever. And they have some very, 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 very positive program for those individuals. But again, they'll talk more about that. That's if you're an existing individual farmer or gardener, as well as those who may have an interest. They may say, well, I never really thought about that before, but now that I understand, if I go lease these 2 lots over here, then I can get those lots classed as a farming operation because I love producing vegetables and being able to supply those crops, what I put into them, being able to supply them directly to the local community residents as a direct-to-consumer marketing basis. Even, and some of the things that are really happening right now is the greater demand on what we call local food supply. They have market opportunities, and of course, I'm sure you would have to deal with the State Department of Agriculture on that, where you can supply school districts as well. Again, local food supply and working out a plan, a marketing strategy for the crops that you may be producing. So I want to just give mention to that in reference to it. So even as the beginning farmers, for veterans and other individuals in the Shaw in, again, Mississippi as a whole. Farm Service Agency. Farm Service in both NRCS and FSA, they deliver resources in such a diverse fashion that is absolutely amazing how they do it and to the level and volume that is done. And the mayor gave reference to that as well. He said, out of all of the resources that is delivered, and he's 100% right to have that there are so many resources that is delivered to this particular economic base, this agricultural economic base. So many resources is delivered to them because agriculture is the backbone of the nation itself. And the importance of what you say, the needed business enterprises that we must have are those individuals that have the responsibility of dealing with our food and fiber supply. And we're very fortunate as a country to have that capacity and have those individuals that have been committed to it from an occupational or career perspective to be able to do that. So Farm Service Agency, Natural Resource Conservation Services, how those resources are delivered. And I said, with a lot of diversity, cost share financial systems that they provide also to make it all possible. FSA, they do it 2 ways. Then they do it one way, they're gonna tell you, when they let you have these resources, you gotta pay them back. Then they do it another way, where they let you have the resources, and it's what I call mitigating or reducing the risk factors that are involved in agriculture. Any particular entrepreneur or business enterprise, whenever you're dealing with investing in a business, that's a risk. People make that investment with the intention or for the purpose of making money. But again, there's a risk factor that exists. And because that risk factor does exist, there are probabilities or possibilities that individuals may not necessarily make the profit margin, or they may lose because, and take the farmers, because they're dealing with not just what the market risk may possibly be, but they're also dealing with the risk of weather. And no one has control of that except for the Almighty himself. So understanding that there is a double risk factor that can be involved when you start to deal with production agriculture. But as far as the measurement of the level of the importance of agriculture, I don't care where you are. I don't care where you live. agriculture touches the lives of everybody in this country. Agriculture touches the lives of everybody in this country. Unless you're, and I know that's not possible, unless you're not eating. And I know everyone depends on, they want a good food supply and a healthy food supply. And that's what our farmers and our producers, that's what they engaged in, providing that particular insurance, that it is available to the consumers and all of us who depend upon it. But I mean, if agriculture wasn't so important, you just look at one segment of agriculture right now and what is going on. And as a result of the risk factor that they have to deal with on an ongoing basis, everybody knows what's been going on with chicken flu. Is it chicken flu?
Bird flu.
Egg flu. Well, bird flu. See, I got plenty of help here. I got it wrong. I said chicken, but bird flu. But with bird flu. So you see what's going on with bird flu, the risk factor that was involved, and look at the major impact that it's had on those farmers. It's the poultry producers had a major impact on those producers, and it required a lot more work and engagement, both on the part of USDA as well as other agencies, don't get me wrong, to address what that issue is. Now, it's had an impact on the farmer, but it's also had an impact on the consumer. Very simple. Supply and demand. The demand is still there, but there's a lack of supply. Now, farmers are faced with that on an ongoing basis. So understand the importance. FSA deliver on those resources they finance. They do it from a direct financing perspective, which means they make loans available to individuals. They'll tell you the different type of loans and how they make those loans available to those producers. Be it a poultry producer, or if they're in grain, fiber, cotton, vegetable production, whatever area it is. So they provide the financing in a diverse means that enable those individuals to make those investments, and again, with the intention of being able to totally repay them on that side at a marginal level of profitability on the other side. But then on the other side, FSA have not only the financing side, they have also what I call the program support assistance side as well. And they'll talk about that. And those programs are made available through USDA because of risk factors that involve and requires a certain level sometime of assistance coming in. And the delivery agencies on a part of that deals with this industry is USDA. Farm Service Agency, what I call our Program Service Delivery Support System with USDA and Farm Service Agency. So you have that side when you talk about FSA, and then when you talk about Natural Resource Conservation Services on the Program Support Services side, and they have a very broad level on that, what they do, how they do it, and how they do it so well. Then, of course, you have USDA rural development as well. We'll talk about that. I'll come back and talk some about USDA rural development, the type of programs that they have available, both from a business enterprise perspective, from a community facility perspective, how they work with small towns, how they work with small businesses, both on their financing, their grant side, their loan side, infrastructure development for rural areas, water, sewer system, community facilities, and housing. Again, so it has been said, and it continues to be said a lot, that USDA, particular rural development, has the resource capacity to really build an entire city, rural, small town, and city. Everything from infrastructure to supporting new business startup and even the expansion and support of existing businesses. That's just very briefly about USDA rural development, and I'll answer any questions that anyone may have, as well as those who may be online. The other area that we're going to talk about, and this will be more, it will be updated more on our website, is air property. Air property can be a challenge. It's a challenge in rural small towns where you find situations where families, they have assets, they have homes, in rural areas that have farmland, and the parents pass on without leaving a will. And in certain cases, they leave wills. but air property can be a barrier. It can be a barrier in accessing some of these resources if individuals do not take the proper steps to put in place administrative structures that would allow them to access the resources that's available through USDA. How they're available. It could be in housing, it could be in program service delivery or some of the other USDA resources as well, but air property, estate planning. And again, we work very specifically in that area ourselves with individuals. So if there are questions in reference to that, we'll try to address those questions today. If there are questions or concerns individuals have afterward, again, same website. You can go to the website, our phone number. You can get that information and just contact us, and we'll do follow up with you as it relates to air property itself and estate planning in that area from a very broad perspective. Very specifically as how we address the problem, depending upon what the situation itself is. The other thing I want to talk about, and we won't go into detail on this, but you can see some of the information again. It's on our website. It's drones and production agriculture. We've been involved in dealing with drones for a few years now, and trying to introduce it more as a part of both technology in one sense, but the benefits of using drones in agriculture, both from a ranching perspective, if you're producing livestock, and if you're producing vegetables, or any other crop. I have a neighbor, and I just recently found out, to the extent that he has gotten engaged in dealing with drones now, and he's a cotton producer. So he used drones for scouting his fields, getting the pictures versus people walking the fields and everything the same way, identifying more of the specific locations and where he may have issues with boll weevils and other type of insects that could adversely affect his crop production. So we're doing it more on a small scale basis with production agriculture as well as with ranching, but specifically right now with production agriculture, vegetable producers, and what we call the observation technical aspect of that, and what may be involved in how to identify issues that you may have with your crop during a certain time period. It may be 5 acres or whichever. Now, I remember when I grew up on a farm, and so I understand vegetable production. We had a garden. Our garden, is what they call urban farms, micro farms. We had a big garden. There were 11 children. I'm number 11. So you understand why we had a big garden, okay? And then we have what's called a truck patch. Yeah, you remember trying to see the marination. Truck patches they were big. They were fields to me. But in our gardens, smaller scale type of production, and those were the early crops. And so we'd be working in the garden now. We getting certain crops out, onions and things of that nature, planting and all those type of things that come in early production. And then when we got to the truck patches, there was a lot more volume involved in that, as well as that we produce for market. Because we produce okra, we produce cucumber, we produce squash, we produce popcorn, we produce peanuts, we produce sweet potatoes, more ash potatoes, you name it, we had it in the truck patch. We had it in the truck patch. And it's ironic the fact that, I was listening to a news report here recently, and where they're trying to bring more back into play now with individuals learning and knowing how to can, particularly as it relates to the urban farm producers and community canning facilities and how people can do that and what the requirements are in order to put it into the marketplace. I think that's great. Local food supply, urban farm, and again, vegetable production, and the importance of that is for our diet and everything else is concerned. On the smaller farms, again, we use drone, we do pre and post type of activities with our producers as it relates to the crop production, understand what is going on with the field within certain timelines, and then practices that has to be applied, and that's important for them to apply in accordance with what we like to refer to them, the ones we like to refer them to, is extension service. If you're dealing with pest management, you know, it's a primary area that we focus on from that. Livestock is more on fencing, damages from fencing, cross fencing, and things of that nature, maybe after storms or whichever. But monitoring, even during a calving period, if all the cows are not up, one cow is not up, then how do you use the drones to really scout your pasture area and do the location, you know, of your cattle? I mean, again, you start talking about 20, 30, even 40 acres, unless you have a, you know, side by side to ride around. A lot of the smaller farms, they don't have a side by side. We didn't have no side by side when I was coming along, and you know, we did a lot of walking and fencing. So I know y'all can't relate to that, but you know, I actually grew up doing that. I still live on that farm too. So that's one of the areas. Again, visit our website. There's more specific information as it has to do with drones in both production, agriculture, and in ranching and livestock production. I'm going to, you know, stop at this point. I'll be engaged also during the process with our resource panelists as we talk about the resources they have to offer, how you can access those resources, and how the resources can be beneficial to you as a producer, farmer that exists, or one who may want to become a beginning farmer. The opportunities that exist for you to become a beginning farmer, type of resource that's available to you to become a beginning farmer as well. Thank you very much. Mayor, again, really appreciate y'all hosting us here. I'm going to turn it back over to our moderator, and I'll probably take up somebody else's time. Ms. Wheeler.
You're fine. And thank you for introducing the what purpose of land and community development is here doing, what we represent, what we do to help our farmers, not only the farmers, but the community. And the program and resource opportunities that he has presented here. So now we're gonna let the representatives of these programs and of the agencies to tell you what programs that may benefit you. So we're gonna start with Trinity, Natural Resource Conservation Service.
Could I add something or ask for something? I don't know if y'all mind, but if we switch it around and let FSA go first, if y'all don't mind.
Okay, that's
To
fine.
go in the rotation of eligibility, that's the first point where farmers come in to discuss, to get enrolled. In their
Absolutely,
farm
with a
rotation.
farm number.
If y'all don't mind.
Oh, no, and thank you. We're gonna start with Tina Bennett, our county executive director.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So to get started with Farm Service Agency or with NRCS programs, FSA is going to be your first stop. We manage all the farm numbers. If there's not a farm number for your property, then we will give you a farm number by drawing that farm number out. The information that we need from the producer is a deed or a lease for the property that you're interested in getting a farm number on. We will need your basic information, name, address, phone number, and if you're applying for any program payments or you think you may be applying for program benefits at a later time, then we would need a tax ID number, a social security number. We would develop a farm plan for you. So you're going to let us know what your plan is. Like, what are you planning on growing? Are you planning on growing row crops? Do you plan on having livestock, whether it's goats or cattle? Do you plan on growing fruits and vegetables? And then once you let us know what your plan is, then we can develop what's called a farm plan for you. Everybody that applies for any program benefits has to have a farm plan in place. And then there's a few other eligibility documents that you have to do, such as like what we call the AGI, which is your adjusted gross income form. We'll take those for any program year that you're applying for a payment. And then there is the highly erodible and wetland certification form. that we take also, and it just lets you know that if you have a wetland on your property, that you can't do anything with it. If you've got an area of trees on your property that you want to clear, that you need to check with us and NRCS first to make sure that there's not a wetland involved, so that you don't have any violations that could affect your payment eligibility later on down the road. Once you let us know what you're gonna grow or what your farm plan is, you'll kind of give us some ideas on how you plan on marketing the crops. Are you gonna market it direct market directly to the consumers through local farmer market or roadside stands? Then we can kind of discuss what programs you would be eligible for at different times. So Dr. King talked about disasters that occur to farmers. And we all know that the weather is crazy in the Delta. You never know if it's gonna be hot or if it's gonna be cold in the winter. You don't know if you're gonna get any rain or a flood. So for our fruits and vegetable farmers, a 3-inch rain could be very bad for your crop, depending on what stage your crop is in. And if you're participating in our NAP program, which is basically crop insurance for fruits and vegetables, then you would come in and let us know that you had a possible disaster that affected your crop. Because some crops, you don't know if you had if that disaster actually affected your crops or not. If you're a producer of pecan trees, and pecans are really big in Bolivar County, but you don't know that the winds that we had yesterday, if it blew off enough limbs to affect your production in the fall. You don't know that. So you want to make sure you come in and file a claim, and we'll send a loss adjuster out, and that loss adjuster will go out and determine if the damage was enough to possibly cause a loss. And then your trees, you know, they're still there, they're still going to produce. And at the end of the year, when you get ready to harvest, you would get the adjuster to come back out and do a count to see if you actually had a production loss. And those production losses are determined based on whatever your crop's APH is. And what APH is, that's your actual production history. And it gets averaged over a period of 3 to 5 years. As a new farmer, you get whatever the county average is. And then if you have good production, your APH will be higher. The higher your APH is, the better chance you are at getting a payment when you do have an eligible disaster that occurs. The lower your APH is, the less likely you are to get a payment, because you have to have a super big loss to meet your disaster level. So keeping really good records is one of the most important things that our small farmers or gardeners or fruit and vegetable farmers can do. And sometimes record keeping is the hardest part of a fruit and vegetable farmer, because you sell to your neighbor and you might take cash. You don't really have a receipt. You've got to figure out a way that you're going to keep up with that sale. Even at farmers markets, you probably do a lot of cash. So you've got to keep records of what you're selling. So when you do have a disaster and you're turning in all of your required documents to meet eligibility for that disaster, then we're going to ask for your sales receipts. We're going to ask for your production receipts, your production records. And a lot of our farmers keep what they call contemporaneous records, which are not necessarily something that's what we call verifiable and reliable, but they could be, documentable and reliable. So if you keep a calendar of, today I went out and I harvested 50 cucumbers, you write that down on your calendar. And then tomorrow you go out and you pick 2 watermelons, you write that down on your calendar. And when it gets time for you to turn those records into us, you have a calendar history of when you harvested and how much you harvested on those days. And we do have some resources in the office that we can provide that just lets you keep, it's different ledgers for different types of crops to kind of help you figure out how you're going to keep up with your records down the road. And kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking for. Other disaster programs that we have would be LFP, LIP, and ELAP. LFP is livestock forage, so we have grazing losses if the county is in a drought. And you have animals that are grazing on your pastures, as long as your pastures were certified, you could be eligible for, additional payments based on how bad the drought is. And we use the National Drought Monitor to determine our level of drought. And it pays at different levels depending on how bad the county is. It doesn't have to be in your part of the county to be eligible, but if the drought is in any part of the county, even in a tiny corner of the county, the whole county is eligible for drought relief for your grazing losses that you have. LIP is for livestock death. So if you have an animal attack, different kinds of animal attacks are eligible. Lightning strike, I've had a producer that lost 2 cattle at one time because of lightning strike. Really bad temperatures, cold weather. A couple years ago, we had a lot. I didn't have any here in Bolivar County, but other parts of the state had calves and younger cattle that died because the cold weather stayed so cold and so long. That's something that you don't have to have a disaster per se that's countywide to be eligible for. You just have to notify us if you've had a livestock death. And then once your herd reaches what we consider normal mortality for that specific animal, then you can start receiving payments for any death that occurs after the fact, as long as it's an eligible death. And then we have ELAP, which is for honeybees and feed transportation costs. So during a drought, if you have to transport feed to your herd, or transport water because you don't have a water facility, then you can apply to get reimbursed for the transportation costs to transport that feed to your pastures. And then honeybees fall under ELAP as well. So if you have honeybee hives and you have a hive that just up and leaves, which is called colony collapse, that's generally an eligible disaster for honeybees. And there's a few others. We don't have a whole lot of honeybee producers that we are aware of. I know I see honeybee hives everywhere in the county, but I don't have any that actually participate in any of our programs. So if y'all know of any honeybee or honey producers, send them our way. I just don't think they know that we're there, that we have programs for them. And then you get to your row crop. So your soybeans, cotton, corn, wheat, rice. Those programs do have those crops do have disaster programs for them. The main one that we do every year right now is called ARC PLC. ARC stands for Agricultural Risk Coverage, and PLC stands for Price Loss Coverage. You sign up for that at the beginning of the farming year, and at the end of the marketing year, there is possible payments based on if the prices fell below a certain marketing year average price, or if the county average yield was less than what the established yield is for the county. Some years we make lots of payments on that, and some years we don't make any. It just kind of all is dependent upon the market and the cropping year. And then there's other disaster programs that are implemented throughout the year that come up because of a certain disaster occurred. It's something that we don't offer all the time, but those programs in the past have been ERP, Emergency Relief Program, and it was eligible for your fruit and vegetable farmers and your row crop farmers. Sometimes ERP is you're only eligible for it if you had a proved loss through crop insurance or through NAP. And then at other times, it is just based on what the producer, come in and certify that your loss was. Besides record keeping, the other really important thing to do is to make sure you come in every year and let us know what you're growing. There are certain reporting dates that are important that you have to report those dates by. So for most crops, it's July the 15th. And then for other crops like pecans, the deadline is March the 15th. And then your winter crops is December the 15th. So that's like your wheat, oats, and some of the winter vegetables. You, when you do that, you come in and we'll give you a map of your farm, and you'll mark on your map the crop that you planted, the day that you planted it, and whether it's irrigated or non-irrigated. If you're a livestock producer, you still want to come in and certify your grazing. You don't certify your number of livestock, but you certify how many acres of grazing you have, and you tell us what kind of grazing you have. So do you have warm winter grasses, cool winter grasses, or full season grasses? But you do that annually. Every year you have to come in and do it. If you miss the deadline, there are some late file provisions that will allow us to take those certifications late, but there's a late fee associated with that per farm number. Does anybody have any questions about programs that y'all may have heard about, or that might relate to your property or your farm?
I have a question for you, in particular for those online and for those who may watch this afterwards. I'm reading why they had under the resolution, there was some resources that was possibly going to be made available to farmers. Farmers are really taking, some pretty hard hits in a lot market loss. And you mentioned the market loss program. Is there anything out there that may be coming in a short time period that could be beneficial for the individual farmers or producers from the market situation, be it price loss, looking at the 23 and 24 crop year?
There is something, not 100% sure on the date that it's going to come out. I know Secretary Rowlands announced something last week,
Right.
but it has not been posted to the National Register yet.
Okay.
And so we have not been notified at state and county level of the details that go along with the program. And because it hasn't been posted to the national record yet, there's nothing really that I could say about it. I only know what the public knows on that at this point.
Right, but it's important that individuals stay in contact with your office to stay abreast of either the time period and possibly how it will be administered locally and how the farmers can benefit from it.
Yes, and we generally send out gov delivery emails we send them out monthly most of the time, unless they tell us we can't send them. And then we, if there's a new program or a new deadline or something that's coming up real soon and we need to get the word out, then we'll send out an email through gov delivery really quickly to make sure that the word gets out.
So, I guess, I know you gave reference to it, but that's on that payment program, is that more on the price support side of it? The combination of both market support, price support, and disaster.
You're referencing the ARC and PLC.
I can't remember exactly which one. I know it was 10 point something billion that's supposed to be a part of the continuing resolution.
Okay.
Okay, that being the first level, and then another 30 plus billion that are going to be at different levels in different areas. But when I've been able to understand, this is back when I was reading it, I guess last month or so, the dollar figures. And I can't remember exactly what the different areas that the dollar was going to fall into, but I know it was, it has been, as I understand it, understood that, unless something has changed, that the appropriation, of the dollars had been made, and that it's anticipated that the first level will be roughly something. And I think 10-point-some billion, that'll be the first level, and the remaining, 30+ billion in the other program areas. So, but you are anticipating, I guess the main thing is that there's something to look forward to.
There is something to look forward to, we just don't know the details.
You don't know the detail of it.
Right, we don't know how it's gonna come out in the wash in the long run.
Gotcha.
Not
And-
until it's posted to the National Register, and then they'll send out something that we would be able to better help the farmers and the local farmers and local producers understand how it's gonna help them.
And that's on the program side of the FFA, as far as financial support to the farm.
Right.
I want to make sure you know that's not where you're gonna tell it. I want it back in.
That's right, it's not on the long run.
It's not on the long side. That's on the program page. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
FSA only, like FSA farm program side, we only administer disaster programs. Whether it be weather-related disaster or market-related disasters.
Right. Now, on the, I know you reference to it, on the sign up, did you say December is the sign up and the deadline sign up on the vegetable side? Let's say, I'm speaking of the spring crop. You got spring, summer, and then the fall crop, the vegetables.
Okay, so for NAP, to participate in NAP, we have different, sign up times based on the crop.
Right,
Most of your spring crops is gonna be February the 28th
which is fast, okay,
to February 2nd, February 28th.
okay,
Pecans is January 31st. Some are March. And then your winter crops, your application dates are generally in September, October, November.
okay. The farm number. I want to become a beginning micro farmer with 2 acres, there's no maximum, minimum level for you to fall in that category.
There is a minimum. We can only draw a farm number out as small as 1/10 of an acre.
1/10 of an acre, okay,
We can't draw a farm out any smaller than that.
okay, that's pretty smart.
I have drawn farms in people's backyards
Right,
for them to put hoop houses on or for them to have a garden in their backyard. In some areas of the state, we have farms that are drawn out on people's front porches
yeah,
or in a back room. As
Right.
long as it is equal to 1/10 of an acre, we can draw it out.
yeah, 1/10 of an acre, that's small. Now, it's on that production side, and getting the farm number, that can be either in the soil, I think it may be a little bit different, well, no, I think FSA may not. It can be either raised beds or directly from, they can get funded. So if they have an area as large as this room area here, they're gonna have raised beds or 2 level points, then they shouldn't get the farm number for that
Yes,
and qualify for the financing and everything else. Okay,
on the financing side,
that's a bit, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna jump on the boat. I'm not gonna confuse, I'll just stick the program here, okay?
Yeah.
So now requirements for getting the farm number,
a deed or lease.
a deed or lease.
A
Okay.
deed or lease to let us find the property. And, once we find the property, we can say if it has a farm number or if it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then we can draw it out. As long as we have the boundary clearly listed in the deed or the lease.
Okay, so if I have a lease on 5 lots, and say I have then I always recommend that they get at minimum a 5-year lease. I normally would recommend a 7-year, you get a 7-year at least, the option of renewal up to 7 years, and that's based on just being able to meet compliance, requirements. So if I have a lease on a lot, a half an acre, whichever, with John Doe, then I can bring my lease in and get a farm number.
Yes, if it's not already drawn out, then I will have to look up to make sure that John Doe owns the property and that he has the right to lease you that land. And we have access in our county to the public ownership records through, I think it's called tscmap.com, where we can look up the ownership records and boundary lines. As long as we can verify that the owner is correct, then we can use your lease to draw out that farm.
So, yes, and this is for the benefit particularly of small towns, and then the mayors knowing also, if a person came to the mayor's office and say, I'm trying to find out about this double lot down here, I want to lease it as an urban farm, then he say, well, A has been taking care of that and keeping it mold and everything, so don't talk to John. I'm sure he'll give you a lease on it. But the mayor may not know that John doesn't have clear title and ownership to it. He grew up there and it was people's property. So it's still our property and it's in the parents' name. So once you look that up, and John does not have title ownership to the property, he signed a lease, then you can't give him the farm number.
Well, there's different ways that we can certify ownership based on heirs. So we can complete a certification of heirship. Or you can provide tax records where you have been paying for the taxes on it. If there's any kind of will or anything left over, even though you may not have closed the estate, the will still may have said that, it goes to you. Then we can use those documents for, to determine that there is ownership interest there.
Okay, so if it's air property and the individual that want to lease the property to them, say, I want to lease my half acre, whichever, to John Doe, I'm going to lease it to him. Then if I can show where I've been paying taxes, but if I still been paying the taxes in my parents' name, will that work still?
There's still ways that we can determine, or we can make that heir eligible as an owner for us. There's lots of different ways, and I did bring some, information on, guidance for heir properties for operators to participate in farms like this. I did bring some things that I can leave or pass out.
No, I really want to, we work through the process, but I just want to make sure that, one, the public understands, the process and then what the requirements are, that's one. And then two, more than anything, that the staff, USDA work through the process with the individuals. So they understand it's not just, I'm going in, I got a lease, and if it's an air property, piece of air property, and the mayor sent them down there and say, okay, you got a lease, go down to FSA, and you can get a farm number, and then you can raise your vegetable crops on this half acre, on this lot, and you can sell it locally to individuals, and say the town want to promote more of the urban micro farms in their small towns, because they have quite a bit of vacant property around, okay? So in that case, then, they would need to let the individuals know that, one, they have to have clear title ownership to that lot, two, they have to produce evidence that they have been acting in an administrative manner with that property, and they can then execute a lease with whoever has the interest in the property and want to get a farm number for it to access USDA resources.
That's right. I've had a producer, or I've had a heir property owner turn in their birth certificate to show me that they were an heir
Right.
to the parents, because it was still showing everything was in the deceased parent's name.
Right.
They've been paying the taxes on it, but in your case, like you suggested, that the name, that person that's been paying the taxes name wasn't on the tax document, wasn't on the tax roll. So, they were able to provide a birth certificate to show that, they were their parent, that they
Right.
belong to them and they
Right.
are an heir.
Right.
So then there's, like I said, there's so many ways that we can help you determine or help you get that qualification of an owner.
That's good. Great.
I just have a quick question on your business plans. Do you typically include information on risk management or marketing in your plans?
We do not. We do not. We work with Mississippi State a good bit. Sending farmers over there to get information on marketing. They have tons of resources that you can look at to say, you know, if you want to grow sweet potatoes, this is what the normal cost to grow sweet potatoes is. This is what the price normally is. So if you want to grow this many acres, this is what you can expect to, you know, profit at the end of the year. And they also have so many divisions with Mississippi State Extension that can help you determine like your soils and if your soils are good for those crops, or they would better benefit a different crop.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Fairly. You mentioned that you see lots on the front porch and even in the back room. Does that require a farm number? Is that considered hydroponics, aeroponics, and do you fund that?
It does require a farm number because you have to be able to certify that crop to something. And when we certify crops, it's based on the farm number, so it's attached to that farm number. So yes, you have to have a farm number for that. If you're gonna participate in our programs, you know, if you're not gonna participate, then, you know, you don't have to have a farm number.
Is there any other online? Okay, thank you, Tina. Next week is farm loan. All right.
Okay, we basically have two for all categories of loans. We have our direct loans and then guaranteed loans. Direct loans are made through the county office. Categories of direct loans, we have direct operating loans that go up to $400,000. Terms range from 1 to 7 years, depending on what it's being used for purchase of equipment. It can go up to 7 years for purchase of our crop input, putting the crop in the ground, that's a 1-year loan. Those loans typically have to have 1 year's experience operating or managing a farm to qualify for that. If you don't meet that, what we have is a micro loan program, goes up to $50,000. And you can have the same terms on those depending on what they're used for. 7 years for equipment, 1 year for production. Security required, it's gotta be secured 100%. We're gonna take anything available. If you've got something available up to 125%. Now, they dropped that from 150% to 125%. I think last year. So that lowers the security requirements. Micro loans, you can also, where we have farm ownership loans, and they're farm ownership loans that also include, you get a micro farm ownership loan. Both of them go up to $50,000, same terms for the operating loan. The farm ownership loan, the regular farm ownership loan is up to $600,000, and the terms on those now are 40 years for the micro and the regular farm ownership. For a farm ownership loan, you're supposed to have operated the farm 3 of the past 10 years. 2 of those years can be substituted with different things, managing a business. I think a degree in agriculture will suffice. And veterans, discharged from the military as a veteran will substitute one of those years. We have the emergency loans, which are out there, and it's based on loss. You have a production loss or even an economic loss. We can provide emergency loans, which we really don't do a lot of those because you can do the same thing with the operating loan. For a while, the operating loan interest rates were lower than the EM loan rates at one time. You can do the same thing with either one. And a lot of people don't qualify for the EM loss based in emergency loan because the loss is usually economic and not due to disaster. That's what we're seeing now. I'm getting calls all the time about emergency, people wanting emergency loans because they've lost money the last 2 years and it's been economic, it hasn't been production loss. That's what's, so you do the same thing with an operating loan, you can do that in your. Guaranteed loans, you go to a bank and get those. Well, the first, on our direct loan, one of the requirements on a direct loan, on any of the direct loans is if you can get money at the bank, we can't loan you the money. You have to be unable to qualify or obtain a loan from a commercial lender, with or without an FSA guarantee. Which you certify to that on the application when you apply. But if we get to the end, working it up in the ratios, like it would qualify for commercial credit, we keep a record of what the banks require. We can send you to a bank to document that, but we cannot compete with commercial. Getting back to the guaranteed loans, you got guaranteed operating loan, guaranteed farm ownership loan. The terms and everything are the same on both of those. The amount of money is different. Get a guaranteed loan for $2,251,000. Thing is, it's the bank's rates. Bank makes the loan, they submit it to us to review and issue a guarantee to the lender. That's what we've got right now. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I know you mentioned. You mentioned the emergency loan, of course, you the same way you do operating loan. I'm gonna use the micro, as an example. One is that if you're a beginning farmer, you want to get a micro loan, you don't have to have the 3 year.
You don't have, on a micro loan, you have to, for a micro operating loan, there's no experience.
No experience, that's one.
You can have a mentor, you walk in off the street, never had dirt under your fingernails a day in your life, and if your neighbor says they're gonna mentor you the first year.
Right.
We can make, but the micro farm ownership loan still has a requirement.
The 3 years, based on the
Yeah.
3 years. Now, the other, you said on the emergency loan, you can use the micro direct loan the same way as you use the emergency loan. But now, it was my understanding that you can take the emergency loan, and this is only an example, that if you are, say you had a micro loan the previous year and that was economic situation, economic disaster, and you fall short. So now the emergency loan, am I correct that it would allow you to, take out the emergency loan to pay that loan current on that direct loan, but you can spread it out over a 7-year period of time and still qualify for another direct loan?
If the loan that you didn't pay back was an FSA loan, a micro loan, you could do primary, we're not gonna make a loan to pay that loan back. You would go through primary loan servicing.
Okay, so you have to service it first. Yeah, right.
Go through
Right.
loan. Now, if you
So you go through service, right?
if you have a loan, we're seeing a lot of that this year. You ended up last year owing the chemical company $200,000 or
Right.
$100,000.
Right.
You can apply for an emergency loan and refinance that debt if there's something to secure it. But you did not have a production loss. Emergency loan is not going to help you, but you can do the same things with an operator.
Okay. So you could go in, and again, you have some outstanding debts. If you paid off the you can pay, there's something you've been now paid off the operating loan either, because that was a part of your operating costs, so that debt to the seed, for the seeds or for the chemicals or fuel, So if you have some outstanding debts there and you have a remaining balance on your own economic losses or whichever that cause economic losses, So then you could go through debt service. This is my first year on beginning farmer. So you can go through, you do debt servicing,
Yes.
which may, involve restructuring. So you restructure that debt, spread it out, remaining balance on the direct loan spread out over what, up to 7 years,
Yeah.
up to 7 years. And that's applying for another direct loan. And in that servicing also, short of that being an emergency loan, you could get another operating loan if it cash flows, I'm saying that, if it cash flows. And pay off, because you have a current liability, with one of your vendors. So with that current liability, so you can get, put into that operating loan that you're gonna pay that current liability off as well as your other operating expenses with the new operating loan,
Well, it would be two different operating loans. You make
emergency loan.
an annual loan for this year's production and then a term operating loan to pay off their vendor.
Okay, would that fold into the servicing over the 2nd year?
It would be a set, it would, yeah, it would be
Yeah,
a
okay.
process of the same.
Okay,
As far as the economic emergency, that the economic loss would not qualify you for an emergency loan.
okay, so basically,
That's production loss or storm loss to a
Okay.
building structure.
so basically, individuals, but, and again, a lot of situations happen with farmers now. So one could come in, so someone say, oh man, okay, I still got this situation out here now, but I need another loan. So one could come in, apply for, get servicing, one, get that service. You know, we had some other benefits, back, which is more on the program side, I guess. That was through 2006, where it paid them current. Yeah, okay, that paid them current. But in this case, because that's over with. And so now in those situations, if they are not current, they should still come in, apply for servicing, restructure that debt. And then any part of that old debt under servicing should be spread out. And then any creditors that may not have been paid off, that would fold into a term loan along with another direct loan.
Right, they can apply to do that.
Right. And
It'll all be run together at the same
Right,
time.
right. So that's more, build that all into your farm business plan.
Right.
Okay, that sounds good.
And I've got something like that sitting on my desk right now.
I know it, and the banks are probably sending you some more.
Right.
Too, I know you. Have the volume, have you seen an increase in your lending volume this year versus what it was last year, referrals coming out?
I'm getting phone calls from banks every day.
I know, I've been talking to some bankers and they said, look, they're just not in that position right now because of what has been occurring for the past, actually, 3 to 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, for the past 3 to 5 years. Okay, that's all I have.
And we have a grain elevator
Oh, yeah,
that went Russian Greenwood, and that put a lot of our people in this area in bad shape before all this other stuff happened. And then adding that on top of it is creating problems.
you also have your CCC loans, right?
I've never done one. I don't know anything about it.
You're talking about, like marketing,
Yes,
like market storage loan, yeah, so.
Yes.
Yeah, we, use those
that's on the program side.
That's on the program side, so
Okay.
if you've got crops in your bins or in other eligible storage facilities and you're not ready to sell them yet, we can loan you, money on what you have in the bins. And then the term on that is 9 months.
Do y'all still do the farm storage facility loans?
We still do. So where you need storage facilities, you show a need that you need more storage or that you don't have any storage facilities. And those storage facilities they're not only grain bins, but it's also, refrigeration units. And then I think trailers, like for trucking and like refrigeration trucks for moving, like we can do those as well.
You finance the reefers if they want to, like put them on the farm and they sit there and use it for cooling purposes, so that you can finance those.
For storage.
Yeah, for sure, yeah, for sure, okay, great. That's good.
And those terms are generally 5, 7, 10, and 10 years, depending on the amount of the loan.
Right.
And the rates are based on the day that the loan is closed, or the day the loan's approved, and those, interest rates come out at the beginning of every month.
What's the interest rate now?
I think it's 5.65. And it's sometimes the rates are dependent on the length of the loan.
Okay. What about on your direct loan?
Direct loan is 5.5%, micro loan is 5%, that's set permanently. The micro loan rate is set, the operating loan rate is 5.5. It can change every month. If it's lower than the micro loan rate, we give it to a micro loan applicant, the regular OL rate. The farm ownership rate is 5.875.
How much of increase have you seen in the past 3 years on the interest rate?
2-3%.
Yeah, okay. Even with the economic, situation,
Probably, I'm just guessing, but I would imagine because
2 to 3% increase, okay.
you think that's right, Gary? You processed a lot of it.
Since Biden, when Biden went in office, the interest rates started going up.
What were they 4 years ago? I don't
I want to say 3 or 2 something. The lowest it got was
remember. I know that it was
Around
2-3%.
Right, I know, that's what we're seeing, that's what we've been publishing back then, 2 to 3%, and just continued to increase, as you said, for the past 2 years. So, that's all.
Yeah. All right, so next we're gonna have NRCS.
All right. NRCS is running currently 2 programs, EQIP and CSP, and they are run on a cost share model. So you do have to put some money with our money for our programs. The sign up for those is continuous, so you can come in at any point and put in an application. We do have deadlines for each fiscal year that your application has to be in by, but we take applications all year if you've missed the fiscal year. So like right now, the fiscal year for 2025, that sign up is already passed. We're writing EQIP contracts right now and ranking our CSP. Our EQIP is designed more for your structural type practices, where our CSP program is going to be more of your management style practices. We can pick the program that best suits you based off of what your goals and objectives are. And some of our common EQIP practices for our like vegetable specialty type crop farmers. We do a lot of high tunnels, as I think someone might have mentioned earlier. We can put a water well in for under specialty crop. We can do irrigation line and sprinkler systems. There's more practices. Those are just some of the common ones. And then on our row crop side, we do a lot more of land forming, underground line, cover crop, things of that nature. Do you have anything to add to that, Morgan?
Yeah, just to kind of go with some more program information. We talked about, farming, and the reason why I wanted FSA to go first, because we talked about eligibility. And I think the question was asked, do we really need a farm number, track number on those smart targeting urban conservation? Yes, if you planning on participating in and getting assistance from the federal government, especially through NRCS or FSA, you would need that farm and track number. That's the number that we have to have for you to participate in the NRCS program, to apply for high tunnel system or any other practices that we offer on urban land, which is house lots or backyard farming or row crop situation. So, that's important because we have a lot of farmers that don't know that. We have, due to offering urban conservation programs, that's open to a lot of the new farmers or new producers that's coming in that had never dealt with, federal government programs, especially NRCS or FSA. So that's very important to know where you have to go in and fill out your AGI, adjusted growth income. And that's a simple form that has to be done every year. If you have to check if you make over $900,000, less than or more than 900,000.
Not in that 1 year, but over a 3-year average.
And then, we have to have some other documents that we have to have in the system. Wetland or ATL determination 1026, I think the form is called. A lot of eligibility documents that you have to complete with FSA to be eligible for our programs too. For Sarah is the soil conservationist here in the Bolivar County area. She announced some program practices that's related in this area that they pretty much target. So she's the face here in the county to help to assist farmers or producers with applying for assistance with the NRCS. More of those land eligibility, I know we speak on heirs property. Eligibility wise, if you can get eligible with FSA, we could assist you in those properties, on those properties of land. If you're not eligible, we can assist you through NRCS. When you come to heirs property, I know if you have been operating that land, if you had some dealing with that land and show that you've been working that property, when you get eligible through FSA, you can come over and apply for NRCS assistance. Whether it's row crop, urban conservation or whatnot, we still be able to apply for assistance.
I have a question on that real quick. Y'all require the landowners to sign some of your applications, correct? So like if the producer is the one that's putting in an application, you require a signature of the owner.
So that's what I was jumping into.
Okay.
So if that producer is leasing that land, is not the owner, he's just the operator. If we're installing structural practices, putting a high tone on that property, or installing a pipe, or installing some type of pipeline, structural practices on that property, we do have to have a signature from the owner. And that signature is just making that owner aware that we are installing practices on that property, and that person is aware of it. And if that person loses the lease within the lifespan of that practice, he's promising that he would take care of that practice for the life of that practice that we have here.
So the heir could sign as owner in those instances, okay?
So
What if it's,
Whoever signed the lease can sign that.
Right.
what if it's multiple heirs?
Well, we try to get the multiple signatures.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to get multiple, and that's where we have had some issue doing that, because some people, if they have a sister, brother, something that's not cooperating or against that person operating that land, they may not get that signature. So that could be an issue. Back to where, hey, it's not an issue with us signing you up, but it's an issue that your sister or sibling won't sign to allow you to put that structural practice on the property. So we have come into that situation before. Yes.
Let me make sure, because so the one, I'm an heir, I can show I've been paying taxes, and I'm farming the land.
Mm-hmm.
And I qualify with FSA, got a farm number.
Right.
And I got 2 other siblings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gonna require the other 2 signatures,
Yeah,
or just mine?
If we're aware of the other ones.
Yeah.
I mean, we can only be aware of the owners that come in to certify. Some
Right.
families certify ownership and they include all the heirs' names.
Right.
Some families don't. We have to go by what's been given to us, so I'm not saying either is right or is wrong either way.
Right.
But if we are aware of the other heirs, then we want to know about them. And then in our case, we would want all the heirs to agree to that lease that we knew about. Now, we only require one signature on the lease. But if the other heirs find out about it, they can write in and say, well, hey, we need to be on that lease also. And as far as what I understand Tahar was saying, that if we knew about 3 heirs, that he would get 3 heirs' signature.
Right. Whoever FSA has listed, that's who we gonna require.
Whoever it was.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm asking that because I know I gave an example based on lease, say, I'm the individual that's leasing it. John Doe leased it to me. John Doe proves that he's been paying taxes on the property and other things and acting as an administrative responsibility. So you accept that, you know, with that person lease. But then if I'm an heir and I come in, cause I'm gonna operate these 5 lots out here. So I'm gonna operate them and raise vegetable crops on them. And I can show that I'm an heir and I act in administrative purposes. And then you ask the question, are there other heirs other than yourself? And I say, yes, then I can't get a farm number unless I get the other heirs.
No, you can still get a farm number because
Yeah.
you are an heir. If the other heirs catch wind of what you're doing and they don't like it, then they can submit a written request to say for us to stop. And then we have to stop until the disagreement of whatever it is worked out between the heirs or between the owner and the operator. Even if the operator is an heir, we have to respect the other heir's wishes, just like we have to respect yours
Understand.
as an heir.
Right.
And that came up because you have an heir that probably, he has siblings that stays out of state, and you got one that stays here directly on the property. He got cows on it. He's been building fences. He's been doing all the stuff that's keeping up the property.
Right.
But he still couldn't get assisted because it's tied up in court. And hadn't gotten that state settlement. So now we're giving that farmer the opportunity, since he's their only place operating, we're giving that opportunity for that farmer to apply for assistance without going through probation and what all that. But if, like I said, if those heirs are in there, most of those work together and they would agree to enhance the property, apply for assistance or whatnot. But if it's one in there that's how you say that, and I've had this come up, well, I'm not gonna sign off on him because he think it's his land and he's doing what he wanna do or whatnot. And then if that person say, well, I disagree and I want this on the property, then we can't go because all the heirs are not in agreement.
I have worked with very reasonable heirs, and I've worked with groups of very unreasonable heirs. Groups as large as 16 to 20. You know.
So right now, heirs property, it wouldn't be an issue if all the heirs would participate or agree on it. But if it's any type of disagreement, that's where we get kind of like,
And the longer the property stays heir property, the more disagreements you run into. So when you're an heir of your grandparents' land or your great-grandparents' land, because they're the ones who originally owned it and their estate wasn't settled, and then it went to your parents, and then it goes to the children, that's when you start seeing a lot of rifts in families, is when it gets way down the line. The ones that are current heirs, some of them have no interest in the land.
That's true.
They've never been out there before. They don't even know where it is. And they have no interest on it, but they don't want anybody else gaining any benefit from it. I mean, we can work with the heirs as much as we can. We just can't get involved in the in-between.
No, that's what we do. Yeah, that's.
And they have the heir property relending program, which I think is still ongoing, where nationwide they allowed certain groups to take applications to help heirs get their property settled. But it was a loan type program where it's still gonna cost the landowner or the mayor's money to settle those states.
Right, that's actually, it is the air property loan program, third party, that actually, make the loan, but the money comes, it's through USDA.
That's right.
And it can cover both the buying the interest, whether areas are covering legal expenses, as well. From that survey, getting a survey done on the property. So it'd be a very beneficial program. I think you don't have it in Mississippi. Some states don't have it.
Right, we do have it in Mississippi.
Right.
I haven't had anybody take advantage of it.
Yeah.
The people that I have talked to about it, they were all about it until they found out they had to pay money back.
Yeah.
Which I can understand because
That's
the reason
their
it's
problem.
not,
Yeah.
the reason it's not been closed is because of financial issues a lot of times anyway.
Right.
So how is it gonna, I guess the only way it could benefit is that you don't have to pay it all back at once. You're not having to make lump sum payments to the attorneys, to the surveyors to get these things done.
Are y'all familiar with anybody that's used that? That was one thing I wanted to ask.
There's individuals, in Arkansas who have inquired about it, but we don't have it in Arkansas. It's not in Arkansas. But as I understand it, you can refer them to the one who makes the loans that makes it out of state if they do business in that state. So
This one says nationwide on there for that first.
yeah, I don't know, but I knew that there was some that actually,
There only three that are approved. I looked yesterday, and the first one there said nationwide.
is that the third one?
That active can up at the top.
Yes, okay.
Says nationwide targeting.
Yep, nationwide targeting, but this one says targeting Indian country.
Native Americans.
That might,
That was,
does that, does she do more than Indian?
yeah, this particular one, it was the one that I'm familiar with. I know I've talked with people out of Oklahoma in reference to that one being, and I know that they
That's
have,
all they'll help you.
they're basically they only basically deal with the Native American populations, so when I had a conversation with them. And so the others, I have not come up with one. Now, there are some banks, and there's one particular bank, it's not a third party lender, but they say they will make loans on air property, and they'll list their base in Mississippi also, and that's Southern Bancorp. So Southern Bancorp, I forget what city it is here in Mississippi, because I'm from the meetings back and forth here with them. But they say they didn't need to be at, and they have what they call a CDFI, Community Development Finance Institution, so they get a certain type of funding to deal with, community development type of financing that falls into that category of eligibility. So say they can make loans on air property without being a third party lender. So they will do it. And they have done it in some cases, but I haven't had them to actually use this particular one.
I haven't heard of it.
I want to kind of touch base back on the when you actually buy a lot in the city areas. We want to be careful with that because, as a producer, you have to be producing something on those lots before you can help. So you may want to, when you're promoting that program, when you come in and sign up for NRCS, when we come out to do inspection, we need to see something growing on that property. Whether you tilled in the ground, something in the pipes or anything, we have to have something already growing. We just can't come out and start you in production. A lot of farmers or producers doesn't know that. They want to come in and when we come out, it's just like they've been cutting the lawn. It's pretty, nothing established. We do have to have something growing to show that you are or have been producing vegetables on that property. And then from there, we can further assist you to enhance your property. Put the high tones, put the, if you're growing a vegetable garden, We can do the irrigation and sprinkler system. You have to have an irrigation history. If you hadn't, if we don't see any, you know, if you're trying to water, running a water hose out there or having some type of water trailer, we can enhance you and upgrade with the water well or water system or whatever we need to help you efficiently irrigate your crop. So that's important where, you know, hey, we just can't come out, you just can't have a lot to come out and it's well groomed and you're not growing vegetables. We have to have you doing something out on that property.
Well, you know, let me just actually, because I know this is actually true. You know, we actually did, you may call it pre-irrigation, you know, on our crops when I was coming up. You know, where you go out and there's one in front with the bucket and you pour some water in the hole, you put the seed in, and then you got the plant, y'all never had those experiences.
I gardened.
Oh,
My
okay.
granddaddy had me out there all the time.
Okay, so they just, because I called, you know, yeah, we did pre-irrigation part, but they did them with both the transplants as well as the seeds.
That's the irrigation history.
Yeah, that's the irrigation history. So I like for people to be aware that they actually do it, but they don't even think about that, have best do stuff. So when you come and you go in there, you putting your transplants in sometimes, you don't put the water in and then put that.
Right.
It's, oh yeah, I do that all the time. Well, so I was calling that pre-irrigation, that irrigation when you move forward. So, just as an example, but yeah, we did it all the time. I always wanted to carry the bucket, you know, thing to pour the water in. So my brother that was older than me, I always wanted to make sure I was the one to have sitting the plants out. So I had somebody that do it to work. So I just wanted to make that as a point. On the financial assistance with NRCS now, is there a minimum or maximum level of financial assistance that you all do with the EQIP or the RCP program?
No, there's no minimum. We can help, you know, with we have urban conservation funding now for city, considered within the city limits. We have offered those. We started out in Vicksburg and I think Greenville, and now we moved that open to Bolivar and some other areas, Greenwood, the Florida County, Greenwood, and some other areas that you can apply for those urban conservation funding. It's not a limit. We geared the practices down to like square footage instead of acre basis. It's more geared towards small producers, small farming production. So it's not a minimum in either program. Now with CSP, you know, the administration last year increased the minimum payment to $4,000. So if you apply under the Conservation Stewardship Program, however you apply, the minimum you will get is $4,000. The max, if you're an individual, is $80,000 and $200,000 for entities.
Okay. To the Lord, I thought it was 250,000.
That's 200,000. Yeah.
Okay. On the now that's a minimum 4,000 is the minimum on the CSP conservation stewardship practices. When you go in, of course, I understand you don't normally like to go in with CSP if they're just starting up as a beginning farmer. So if you go in with the EQIP program, but you can include CSP practices a part of the EQIP contract.
You can apply. You can put EQIP practices with CSP under the CSP program.
Okay.
So enhancements, CSP are enhancements.
Exactly.
Right. So we can't put EQIP, we can't put CSP enhancements under EQIP.
Okay.
So we can include practices under the CSP program.
Okay. So you do the EQIP, whatever those practices are. So you may have specific practices that's relevant to conservation stewardship practices, which you do anyway.
Right.
So if those practices are relevant to that, then you can come back at the first year at the end of the EQIP contract and sign up for CSP. Or can you sign up for the CSP while you have for enhancement, while you have the EQIP contract, which is what, 5 year max. So in that 5 year time period with EQIP, you can say at the end of the first year, second year, you can come in and sign up a CSP to enhance those practices after the first year.
Right.
Okay.
So
And,
we,
and that's when you're eligible for the minimum $4,000. Okay.
so we'd rather you sign up for EQIP if you're just starting out, beginning farmer to apply to EQIP. To resolve any type of erosion concerns, any type of resource concerns that you have on your property. It's on large farms, or, cattle land or forestry or whatever. We would like to address those concerns because the question you get into CSP is, have you addressed any of your erosion concerns and do you have any of that? And we have to answer that question to the best of our ability. So those EQIP practices usually address your erosion concerns or any type of other concern that you may have on your property. And then once you get that addressed, you would get into CSP as management practice, as Sarah said, that would enhance those EQIP practices that you've already installed on your practice, on your land.
Good.
Does the CSP, does it still cover the feed pads and the automatic waters?
That's covered under EQIP.
Is that equipped?
So that's one of your practices that's eligible under the grace plan. So we have crop land, resource concerns, we have grazing land, and we have forestry that we address. And then we throw in wildlife, with that. So, it's a lot of wildlife. We do a lot of wildlife production, installation here in the Delta where we, flood area for ducks and whatnot. During the winter months. So we do a lot of wildlife stuff here also as well.
That's cost share as
Right.
well. Okay.
Any other questions? I mean, we talked about, I know we targeting micro urban conservation, but we are, NRCS always jump into wetland reserve. We have wetlands easement program that we assist with. If cropland is in production and, someone is retired from farming and they want to go put their land in the easement program, that's an opportunity on cropland, where we come in, and that's a lump sum payment, permanent easement, where NRCS come in and restore that property to its original state. If it was a wetland, we restore it back to a wetland. They'll put structures on it and pay you for enrolling your land into that program.
Now, on the conservation easement, I'm glad you mentioned that. I know you have the permanent easement, don't you have one that's 15 years?
Right.
Okay, so you have 15 years. What's the difference on the payment per acre on the 15-year versus permanent?
I think it's just the way you want to enroll it. If you want a permanent easement or you just want short term, I think it's the same amount.
Same amount per acre. Right, so. Now, that was a person, and I have not seen this yet, said that you could apply for a conservation easement and still farm the land. You have a program that works that way. So you get paid so much per acre under NRCS. I don't know if it's the same dollar amount, if they said it was a lesser dollar amount, but you can still operate the farm.
All right, now farming wise, if it get selected in the easement program, you can farm it up till the time that we start restoring that property.
Okay.
Anytime after we start restoring that property, you're not able to farm it anymore.
Okay, so after that 15-year time period, you can't do production.
Well, after the 15 year, I mean, I guess if it's out of contract, you're talking about if they.
No, I mean doing contract, but you can't do production.
No,
No. I told him, I didn't know about that one. I said, maybe y'all should.
You're limited when you get submitted in that easement program, you're limited on what you can do on that easement.
Right.
You pretty much have to get permission to do anything on that easement.
Right. But you still can do wildlife.
Right.
On it. So you can be engaged in the conservation easement 15-year time period, and you can still get the cost share basis part of the contract to do wildlife preservation practices on it.
Can't get any type of cost share. It's a lump sum payment on it.
Okay, so you just have to have that as part of your practice in the easement, Do you get paid more per acre if that was part of an activity in the easement program? on a per acre basis versus just a blanket line east.
No, it's just a blank line.
So it's still the same per acre, okay, and no cost share with it. Not good. Okay, all right,
Yeah, we just paid, like cropland, I think is $3,200. Don't quote me on that. It's,
that's the same number I have, yeah, about $3,200 an acre,
right.
right?
So you get
That,
that.
that's on irrigated, right? The $3,200 an acre,
It's just cropland.
just cropland period, not irrigated. So it's the same for irrigated, not irrigated? I like that, I think I'll put some in. I know.
There's not a difference between irrigated and non-irrigated, just cropland period.
Yes, it's cropland, it's cropland.
Now, it may be different from the delta area versus hill.
Yeah, no, I'm flat man, trust me, I'm in the Delta.
So if you, I mean, the cost, I've seen some cost change with delta cropland versus hills. Cropland.
But there's a
But you
minimum,
don't have a lot of land and being put into easement in the hills. You may have some in some other counties and whatnot, but most of your delta land, it may get more per acre on crop or other lands if you enroll in some delta land.
but now there's a minimum acre that you can put into easement, right? There's a minimum amount of acres.
I don't think so. You know, you just have to, when you submit your application, we have to accept it. Now, your application will be reviewed because it's some determination
Good.
that we have to make on eligibility. You can offer whatever you want to offer, but I don't think it's a minimum acreage.
Okay, so if you have 20 acres,
Right.
not put the 20 acres in versus, and I'm not mind competing for one that has 100 acres it's still the same.
Right.
It's just based on the soil type and all that, those same factors, that you deal with. Okay.
That's all, I know the mayor was here, we do offer the emergency watershed program, for government and city representative, where we come in and address, flooding issues. You can apply, and that has to come through, that's not for landowner, but you know, if it's approved by a board of supervisors or the mayor to come in and sponsor someone to improve drainage, system in your city or areas that the county board of supervisors cover. We have that emergency watershed program that we, watershed program that we offer to help assist with drainage issues and flooding, in the area. So that's available also through the NRCS, but it's a special program to be sponsored, by mayors or board of supervisors and things like that you address flooding.
That's within the city limits, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I know some cities who actually has benefited from that. We worked with some towns back some years ago where they were having drainage issues and ditches needed to be cleaned out and opening those ditches up. And while they were having some major flooding areas in the town, NRCS covered that, provided a grant for them to do it. Yeah, well, I'd say 100%.
It's not 100%, but you know, it's.
Well, maybe not 100%, but normally, as long as those cases where you have city equipment
Right.
involved, when you have the city equipment
In-kind
involved with it.
support, in-kind support. And
Yeah,
things like
so that in-kind support, and they were able to do a lot of work in resolving some drainage issues they had in that particular town, part of their city. And most towns have some drainage. Rural town has some drainage. Sometimes because of the land outside of the city limits, the type of conservation practice that's been employed, that result in the water flow coming different directions into the towns, and there's a need for a ditching situation. So that program can be very beneficial for small town, rural towns, that has over the years, had a growing flooding issue in certain parts of the town that's next to farmland area. I know I am over my time.
All right, thank you all so much, NRCS, Farm Loan, and Farm Program. Thank you so much. Doc, I think you are the program to kind of break from a little bit on rural development?
Okay, let me just say this, on rural development and the fact that rural development is not here, I do not want to speak, in relationship to any of the programs that's not correct. One, as I referenced earlier, when I, first started with my opening presentation, one of the areas that rural development has been most noted for in our small rural town is housing assistance. And, we have worked with rural development, even ourselves, and with small towns, in doing housing development, both with the 502 program and the 504 program. The 504 program is a renovation program. Now, that comes in the way of both a grant up to $10,000 and a loan up to $40,000 at a 1% interest rate. Now, if they're eligible to receive the benefit of both the grant and the loan, that's $50,000 that you can do as far as renovation assistance on home. Eligibility is based on income. That's what they call the affordable housing program that they do under the 504 and the 502. The 504 is again for renovation and the grant program. The 504 is the renovation loan program, and then you have a grant program, as well. And that's the one that's the $10,000, and the $40,000 loan is for the renovation program on the 504. They have the 502. The 502 is the loan program for new construction. It can be for either new construction or to purchase an existing home. The exact dollar amount, because it's changed from one year to another, but the last, back some time when I checked more specifically, and it may be more, maybe less now, the maximum amount of that loan for the 502 program for new construction was $368,000. Now, it has increased over the years because the council housing has gone up over the years. And from what I'm seeing, some of the indicators now, it may be going up again. Now, how do you create the affordability on and I don't know the exact interest rates they have right now on that, because those have changed also from 1 month to the next month, just like the farm programs have. But that 502 program for new construction are purchasing an existing home. People say, how can you afford, we're dealing with affordable housing, $350,000 or $368,000 note? Well, they have their tools on how they work with that process to create the affordability based on that, where they can afford to make the note. One is based on how to deal with the interest rates and, how to, that's the way the program works to create the affordability on the payment side for those individuals who may be interested in building a new home or purchasing an existing home. I see in a lot of the rural areas, a lot of small towns now, one of the very, very high need is the need for renovation on some of the existing homes. Sometimes it's the next generation. A family member may be living in the house. It may just be situations because you have set income, some of the older individuals, and they would qualify. Now on the grant program, you have to be 62 years of age or older for the grant, the $10,000 grant program. That's one. It normally addresses issues as it relates to health and safety in the home. It may be an electrical issue that creates a danger. It may be a flooring situation that needs to be corrected so one won't trip and fall. It could be water heaters and things like it may be where you have a leak with the roof that's creating mold in the house. Of course, you have a health hazard situation there. Again, we're talking about the $10,000 grant program. The only thing is normally, again, we're talking about housing costs and housing cost increases. Normally, on average, you can go in and deal with the home now, and if you're doing a replace on the roof, you're going to quickly take out your $10,000 or more. You need to have a roof and need to have some work done on the flooring for safety situations, some plumbing issues where you have old piping that need to be redone on that, maybe lead or whichever situation with the pipe need to be done. So again, no 10,000 not gonna go very far. So in those cases, there is a need to do both the 504 loan program, 1% interest rate, along with the grant program up to $10,000. That's available with USDA. And, you know, again, I like to suggest to the mayors and others that that individuals know about it, refer them to USDA, or they can call our office. They can call our office. We can work with them either by phone and back with the USDA local office. We can connect them back with Zoom for office visitation to talk about what their needs are and, you know, what has to be dealt with on that. You are required to have a licensed individual to do what I call a CNA, a capital needs assessment on that property to make sure it's going to bring it up to standard. And that's a licensed contract. It's going to bring it up to standard to address those issues as related to that particular property. There's a great need for it, and we need more in most of our rural towns. And people need to know about the program more, know about the eligibility requirements, know how to access that particular program when you start to talk about the elderly population. The other community facilities grant program. USDA rural development has a community facilities grant program. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be 100% grant. It has to do what the average income area is for the what the average income is for the areas. So Shaw, there may be community facilities. It could be a recreation center, you know, that the city has. They work with city halls and other type of communities. In certain cases, there have been nonprofits that have applied for community facility loans and received a cost share basis on the community facility loan grant. They have a grant and loan. They receive part grant and then part loan and dealing with the community facilities. Because of course the water sewer infrastructure, they are the basic and primary lender for municipalities. If you deal with expanding the infrastructure for a particular town, a new infrastructure going in, upgrading the infrastructure. In a lot of cases, you'll find in a lot of our rural towns and areas, the infrastructure was built to meet the need of an existing population. To meet the needs, you know what I'm talking about, right? So the infrastructure was built to meet the needs of an existing population in our rural area. And I'm only going to use an example. So the population was 20,000 or 25,000. And that infrastructure was put in the 60s. Okay. Now, since the 60s, there's been a population decline in the area, and this works two different ways. You know, it can be when you had a population increase, and you need to expand the infrastructure system, or the city may have annexed some areas in that has some housing population there that's not connected back to, say, the sewer system. So RD can work with that on expanding the infrastructure for the sewer system, and the same thing back with the rural water lines. Most of the rural areas have rural water in the sewer system specifically. On the other hand, you have situations where the cities have had a decline in population. As a result of decline in population, you got a 20,000 population, and the feasibility of that for that particular plan, and any gets the loan grant that they got some years ago, and that debt servicing then, and the population going down to 15,000, 10,000, then it's more challenging for those communities, and it's a low income area for those communities based on what the billing rate is to continue to deal with the operating costs of those facilities, as well as any debt servicing, if there's any remaining balances there on water and sewer system. Could be a treatment plant too, from that time period over, has declined in a certain way, and there's a need to do some upgrade or modifications. It may be where they had above ground pumping units on there for the sewer system, and they want to go more to the submerged or underground pumping shape with the sewer system for support versus the above ground. So all of those things, upgrading and things of that comes to USDA rural development. Again, the combination may qualify for grant. They also have the loan program for that with the infrastructure side. The other community facilities, infrastructure, housing is a business enterprise. You know, they also make loans for. I know in some states they make them direct from the state office, but they make loans for businesses, for rural businesses. RD is a lender for rural business enterprise. They also have a grant program. If it's an existing business and it's a situation where an existing business is going to expand and create new jobs in the area, then if the city is going to sponsor that particular application, and sometimes requires city sponsorship and sometimes it does not, if a nonprofit is involved. If a nonprofit is involved, then where they may qualify for the loan grant to deal with expanding that particular business enterprise that's going to enhance economic development with job creation and by other means as well. That's on the business side. They also have an energy grant program as well. That's under USDA rural development for energy. Now, the energy grant program particularly works well for municipalities that is upgrading, putting in energy saving type of system, maybe heating and air and things of that nature. As I understand the program itself, I think they call it REAP or 1 to 2, but anyway, it's an energy system program. They can work with municipalities on that, maybe with the fire station and things of that nature, with municipalities, local government in rural areas. Fire station, yeah, you know, they finance and they provide the financing and financial assistance for fire stations for municipalities, police cars, things of that nature. They do the same. Y'all may have taken a benefit of some of those. Okay, great. So he understands the program. For those who may be online or those who may see this after the fact, again, USDA rural development, it has a lot of resources available, both by way of the grant program, the loan program, and all those categories. Being facilities, housing, infrastructure, energy, as well as cooperative. They have the cooperative loan and grant program. They also have a program where they can work with cities, local government, local areas, if they have a food pantry or a need to upgrade or to put in a food pantry. Now, why are food pantries important? One, food pantries are important for local food supply while they're serviced from the food bank. Normally, the states have these large food banks, which are super large buildings with how the food comes in from manufacturers in other areas. But the reason that food pantries can be so beneficial for local areas and local food supply, some states, through the State Department of Agriculture, they can actually pay farmers for the vegetables that they supply to the food pantry. You all may have that here in this area as well. If you have that, the importance of what rural development does with the food pantry, and then what FSA and NRCS is doing with the local micro urban farmers, and getting more urban and micro farmers, as FSA said, to have a marketing plan. So then a marketing plan could be to supply a food pantry with the vegetables they're producing over a period of time, and making the application to be a supplier for a food pantry. It may not be their primary market, then it could be their primary market, because they could have the food pantry as the primary market and direct to consumers as an example as a secondary market. Major point is that those resources are there with USDA rural development. They have done them in a lot of areas. It may be the food pantry just need to be upgraded. It may be operating the old way, they need to put in some cooler systems and things of that nature. Then rural development is one that can do that, and this through their grant program for that. And they have the cooperative, those where you have people or individuals or organizations that may want to work with micro-urban farmers to create a cooperative. So they put a number of producers together and develop a cooperative plan. So you got 20 small producers, micro-urban farms. They create a cooperative. They have a plan on what their volume is going to be, have a production schedule and supply schedule. And those that group together have a consistent supply of vegetables back into the food pantry, over that whole period of time. And that's a whole structuring process with that. Again, the cooperative grant and cooperative planning grant program, local resources for local area. And it's all about economic development, job creation, and creating broader market opportunities for the farmers with that. And there are other programs they have also as well. Again, that's just a quick summary of USDA rural development. Any questions? I'll be able to, I won't say be able to, but I will respond to them to the best of my ability as it relates to USDA rural development.
Now, King, I don't have a question, just a comment. I've done the 502, 504, a lot of people eligible. Two drawbacks. Number one, they didn't own the property. They were renters. They were renters, but they did not own the property. Second was the income. I mean, you want to take advantage, but you gotta fit whatever prerequisites are there.
Right.
And those were the problems, the two I had with my citizens.
So are they above income, below income?
Above.
They're above income.
Above. And they didn't want to do that loan deal, so. But I've had a lot of this stuff there, the drainage and all that. I've worked with a lot of that.
Now, the drainage, this guy.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes.
Oh, so you benefit from NRCS.
Oh, yeah, we did all that stuff. We got, so a lot of this stuff we get from Delta State, from the area. And then like in Cleveland, you have organizations that have different meetings.
Right.
So what you want to do is make sure you get the word out to your people
Right.
who are potentially eligible.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100%. Income is a criteria. You have to meet the income criteria under the grant program as well as on the loan program side. And then some won't the grant, but they don't want to do the loan. And the grant is not sufficient. It's not enough to do what the needs are on those properties. But you do run into that a lot. I will suggest this to the possibility, Mayor, and to the USDA, individuals, but you may want to look at having a conversation with your local bank. With the local bank, the local banks have an affordable housing program through the Federal Home Loan Bank. I mean, the banks have to apply for it. Now, if you do a combination for adequate financing, you do a combination of the affordable home program through the bank with Federal Home Loan Bank and the USDA grant program and lessen the amount of the loan. And again, that's up to a $2 million grant is the maximum part. Now, a lot of local areas don't know about that, and they are not utilizing the Federal Home Loan Bank affordable housing program. But again, the bank makes the application. Nonprofits can do it with the bank and use the 504 program or the 502. The 504, the combination of that and the grant program, and develop your plan around that. Now, one other one that I did not mention, they do have a rehab grant program as well that nonprofits can do, and it's called Home Preservation Grant Program. Now, there's a Home Preservation Grant Program through USDA's Rural Development. Again, the Home Preservation Program, you can do a combination, nonprofits can, a combination of a home preservation grant combined with the clientele that they're working with the other grant program, like it should have an income criteria that has to be met on that. But what it does, it provides more reach, it gives you, more resource to work with the individual on, but that's called the Home Preservation Grant Program, and that also is through USDA Rural Development nonprofit organizations. They qualify, they're eligible, they can make the application. I always recommend that they partner with the cities that they're gonna work with, and already rural development way. If there are no questions, and if I did an injustice to rural development, I'm explaining y'all program, I totally apologize, for that. But I think I hit most of them, I may have some of the dollar figures on.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you, everyone, for here on the panel today. And we hope that, you, audience that's online today have a better understanding of fair development practice with the USDA programs, services, and to improve outcome for historically marginalized, farmers, landowners, and throughout your communities. Again, thank you, Mayor Stanton, for allowing us to come in your city.
You're more than welcome.
And again, Mayor and those who are online, I do want to mention again, anyone that you may know of who did not see this presentation, and the USDA people that want to access it and see it after the fact, they can go to www.ALCDC.org, and they can go on and they can listen to the presentation of all the USDA individuals on an ongoing basis. You won't miss it. Thanks.
Or you can call 870-734-1140 at the main campus.
Right.
Or in Forest City, Arkansas, we have 870-594-8028 or 870-594-8994, extension 102 or 104. Again, thank you. You all have a safe trip going back. And we do have evaluation forms that we would like for you to complete and give them as you go out.